What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. So this is our special WrestleMania edition. So the granddaddy of them all, the show of shows is finally upon us. We've seen it. We spent all 7.5 hours watching it, Sunday night going into Monday morning, and it was an epic show. Today I've got two special guests with me. I've got Half Decent, and I've got one of my wrestling friends, Heather. So Heather and Half Decent, or can I call you Chris for the podcast, Chris? Heather and Chris, welcome to Wrestling with Johners. You've been on it before. You reviewed Wrestle Kingdom for me at the beginning of January, but welcome back to the podcast, and thanks for jumping on to review WrestleMania with us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
happy to be here.
Yeah, it's brilliant to have you back on. So we're not going to go 7.5 hours with this podcast. We're going to go much shorter. But kind of going into WrestleMania, two of you, I mean, what was your kind of expectations? Were you excited? Were you kind of not as hyped for this WrestleMania compared to previous years? Kind of, you know, where was your mind at going into WrestleMania before the big show itself? You know, tell me your excitement levels first of all.
Yeah, definitely not as excited about this WrestleMania as I have been about other ones, which is really sad.
So why was that then? No. Why was that, Heather?
Oh, I don't know. Like I'm not. The main event really wasn't kind of. They're not my favorite wrestlers. I didn't really like the setup to it. We'll obviously get to that a bit later on, but
yeah.
You know, I kind of didn't really think it was you know what I wanted to see. And some of the people who I wanted to see further up on the card weren't, and I didn't think that was great. Having said that, having watched it, completely changed my opinion, loved it, and some fantastic matches to talk about.
You're not alone in that. I think a lot of people were let down by the build to some of the matches, and you know, some of it felt a bit flat going into it, and they kind of focused on just one or two matches. And but what about yourself, Chris? I mean, you sound like you've got different opinions there. You sound like you're a little bit more hyped for WrestleMania going into it.
Yeah, there was a lot of matches for me that I thought would be the potential to be the standout match. Even looking as early down as the card for Seth versus Brock, I thought seeing them in a one-on-one match would be good. AJ and Orton, I thought would be a good match. The Kofi Daniel Bryan, I knew that there's the time for both of them to deliver. I thought there was a lot of opportunity. Whether there was a couple of dud matches here or there, or matches that didn't really need to be on the pay-per-view, that's kind of subject to opinion. But
yeah.
I feel like there was some people they could have done more with, and others that, you know, I think definitely had a moment where they could just do their best and actually show that they're worthy to be on WrestleMania. So that was why I was quite excited for it, because I felt like there was a lot of chance to get this one right if they wanted to.
Yeah. So I know that, like I said, there's a lot of people that felt very similar to the way Heather did, wasn't that hyped for it going into it. Overall, you know, I was kind of looking forward to it. As WrestleMania week developed and it got closer to the show, I think I got more and more excited. I think like a lot of people. But we'll talk more about the individual matches in a moment. First of all, I'm very interested to know from both of you kind of what your kind of first memories of a WrestleMania, and kind of dating back how far. What was the first one you saw, either on DVD or, you know, on Sky? Or Chris, what about you first? What's your first memories of a WrestleMania?
I don't even know if I can remember my first Mania, but I know the moment I got into it was the same as most UK fans. My auntie actually ordered SummerSlam 92 on pay-per-view, and I watched that around hers. I think that was the first time I was ever exposed to wrestling. And then that weekend, we ended up at like a car boot sale, and there was a VHS that was the greatest matches of WrestleMania, but it only had WrestleMania 1 to 4. And so my first, and it wasn't even the greatest matches, like it was just whatever matches they thought they would throw on a VHS. But that was definitely my first exposure to what WrestleMania was. And I think the first match was like the Battle Royal on the first WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And I remember there being a British Bulldogs match probably from WrestleMania 3. So it didn't even really show me the best of what WrestleMania had to offer. But that was definitely my kind of first exposure to wrestling. And then I just started collecting VHSs before I even really got into what was going on at the time. So I don't even think I caught up properly until the Attitude Era when I was. Yeah. So
now, Heather, you're a slightly newer wrestling fan. You've been watching it for the last few years.
Right.
You are an avid fan now and into all the storylines. But what was the first kind of memory of a WrestleMania for you? How far back does it go? And kind of what are your memories from that first WrestleMania?
I watched WrestleMania for the first time about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember just being a little bit like, oh, okay, cool, I'll watch this. That's fine. I think my boyfriend at the time was watching it. So I was like, okay, you know what? He likes wrestling. My dad has always been a massive wrestling fan as well. And though it was never a big thing in our house when I was growing up and I was very young, the older I've got, the more into it I've become. And I think a lot of people who are kind of my age, who perhaps didn't really get into wrestling when they were younger are kind of getting into it now. It's becoming a bit more of an, I guess, acceptable thing. Bit of an odd thing to say, but yeah, absolutely love watching it. I was hooked from the minute I started watching it. My favorite thing about the wrestling that I saw was kind of how beautifully kind of choreographed the moves are. I really love the kind of talent behind it, the skill behind it, the dedication of the people in the matches. So I watch it because it's an amazing show. And it's fantastic. Lots of fun.
Okay, so another question for you both. What did you think of the set this time round? So every year, everybody looks forward to the big reveal. Everybody looks forward to what the stage is going to look like, or what they're going to have around the ring. This year, they kept it a little bit more simple with a huge 8K screen. So it's kind of state of the art technology, the world's biggest screen, and kind of a canopy over the ring in case it rained, with it being an outdoor event this time round. But not as over the top as we've seen from previous WrestleMania stages. Did it work? Didn't it work? Did it set the right tone for the show? What do you guys think of the set this year?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was quite cool. I like a minimalist approach, although I'm not too sure about how fancy that screen was, because when you saw Triple H coming through, he came through the screen, they kind of opened it up and it was like a bit wobbly, and I was like, oh God, it's going to break. But yeah, I thought it was all right, and I don't like anything that's too over the top.
Yeah.
Chris,
yeah, I think there's usually it's one of those things that there's quite a lot of talk about, and there's a lot of build up to it, but really it doesn't matter once they get out and start with their entrances.
Yeah.
But one thing I did notice in the presentation though, just the overall show, and I can't remember if this happened last year, but it definitely happened the year before. I didn't see any 3D edition this time, and I don't know if it was because I was watching it on a non 3D telly, but last time I just remember the 3D stuff not looking good at all. Like so the Undertaker's lightning bolt, and there was that Orton had that snake when he was coming down to the ring when he was fighting Wyatt. I think all of that was in 3D, and I felt this time I didn't notice any.
Yeah, they definitely had some this time around.
They did?
Yeah,
I know they had it at the Royal Rumble. I'm not sure if they had it too. It wasn't that evident this time round, but
that memorable. Nobody knows
but let's have a look at some of the matches. So there was a 2-hour kickoff show, 2-hour pre-show before the main show itself. So the kickoff show went as long as any normal wrestling show, to be honest with you. But it had 4 interesting matches, and the first of which was for the WWE Cruiserweight Championship. So Buddy Murphy versus Tony Nese. So Tony Nese won a tournament on 205 Live a couple of weeks before to get a title shot against Buddy Murphy for his Cruiserweight Championship. And Buddy Murphy has been the Cruiserweight Champion since the Super Showdown in Australia in October last year. So have you seen much of Buddy Murphy or Tony Nese before this? I know that 205 Live is not one of the more popular shows on the network, and they don't always get a lot of exposure on the main roster. But were you familiar with these two before this match, and kind of what were your thoughts going into it?
Yeah, definitely seen them both perform. Obviously, a little bit more of Buddy than of Tony.
Yeah.
Really like their styles. I like how kind of aggressive they are. I think they're both kind of like powerhouses. And you're right when you say 205 Live doesn't really get as much exposure. And those wrestlers that are on it don't get as much exposure as perhaps they should. I would love to see that more kind of pushed within the wrestling world.
Yeah.
I thought they did an absolutely cracking job in the match.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to go through some of the key spots here. So quite early on, and I can't remember the spot when this happened, but Buddy Murphy got a bit of a bloody eye from a move early on in the match. Murphy hits a cheeky Nando's kick in the corner before getting a 2 count from a twisting slam in the center of the ring. Nice hits a spiked inverted Rana, so quite an impressive move there. Nice then connects with a spinning dive over the top rope, almost like a Fosbury flop really, to the outside before nailing a 450 onto Murphy for a close near fall. Murphy manages to hit his Murphy Law, which usually gets a 3 count against any other opponent, but Nice managed to put his foot on the rope. Nice makes a swift recovery with a German suplex into the corner before following it up with his running knee to the face of Buddy Murphy. He hooked the leg and got the 3 count. So the match went about 9 minutes. Yeah, the running knee. Yeah, it was a theme of the evening, but he got the 3 count from a running knee, and we have a new cruiserweight champion. So Tony Nese, the new cruiserweight champion. What was your thoughts on the match? I thought that it was a shame this was on the kickoff. Certainly one of the better matches of the pre-show, but one of the better matches of the whole night. What did you think?
I loved the build up of the near falls towards the end. Like there was so many like hitting their finishers and foot on the ropes. All of that was really well done, and I thought that it helped build to show that it was a match worthy of the kind of main show rather than just the pre-show. It will be interesting to see if we ever actually get a first cruiserweight main event WrestleMania. I think a lot of emphasis is always obviously the women are doing great things, and I think the sooner you just consider it all one product and you don't divide them, the better it will be. And I think the same should be said about tag teams and cruiserweights as well. They should just all be given a shot to be the best, and the best match should be the main event.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only way that the cruiserweights might end up on the main event or even on the main card of WrestleMania, they need to add some bigger name value stars onto the cruiserweight division or onto 205 Live. There's a lot of speculation that individuals like Johnny Gargano might end up on 205 Live in the future, or it could be something for Ricochet to go for in the future. But I think they need some more star power on 205 Live. But moving on, let's have a look at match number 2 of the pre-show, the Women's Battle Royal. So it had pretty much every female that isn't on the main card, either as part of the tag title match or the main event match in this Women's Battle Royal. I'll name off some of the names now. You had Lana, Naomi, Asuka, Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville, Ruby Riott, Carmella, Candice LeRae from NXT, of course, Kairi Sane, Sarah Logan, Zelina Vega, and Mickie James. So there was close to 20 individuals in the ring to start this Women's Battle Royal, the second annual Women's Battle Royal, and of course Naomi won the first one in New Orleans last year. Just to go through some of the key spots, Asuka goes for a Rampage, eliminating Candice LeRae and Nikki Cross. So she goes on a bit of a rampage there, eliminating some of her competitors early on. Ember Moon eliminates Naomi. Then Ember Moon gets eliminated early on by Lana. It goes on. Kairi Sane hits an insane elbow on Sarah Logan. But then Kairi Sane is soon eliminated by both members of the Riot Squad. Let's see. Dana Brooke gets eliminated by Sonya Deville. Mickie James gets eliminated by Mandy Rose with a super kick. It leaves eventually 3 individuals in the ring: Asuka, Sarah Logan, and Sonya Deville. Sarah Logan gets rid of Asuka, leaving just herself and Sonya Deville in the ring. Logan thinks she's won the whole thing, but Carmella comes from underneath the ring, or from outside, having not been eliminated from earlier on, and eventually eliminates Sarah Logan, who'd previously thought she'd won, and Carmella wins the second annual Women's Battle Royal. Very, very similar ending to what happened last year, if you remember, because Bayley thought that she had eliminated Sasha Banks, thinking that it was just her and Sasha Banks last year, and then Naomi came in and won the match. Same outcome here. Different wrestlers involved. Carmella is the second ever WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal winner. What did you think on that one, guys?
Well, I will jump in by saying boo again. I was really annoyed about that because I thought Sarah Logan did a really, really massive, amazing job in the whole Battle Royal. Yeah. I thought it was one of the best matches on the card. I thought it was so well done. Everybody got their spot. And I didn't even realise Carmella was in it. She basically hid straight away, didn't she? So nobody got to see her. And I thought, well, that's typical to her character. You know, she's a heel. She's from New York, or is she from New Jersey? Like, she's from around there. So people are going to cheer her and love her. But there were better people in that deserved to win it. And I don't really think Carmella needs another push.
Yeah, Carmella's had too many kind of things that, like, first Money in the Bank, like for women, and it's like she did nothing with that really, and
she didn't even get that of her own, her own skill either, did she?
It just feels like they're doing too much for Carmella when there's other really talented people that are ready for main event status
like
already.
Naomi,
like
Asuka.
There's a lot there, and I thought overall a great match. Again, like you said, a little bit disappointing that it ended the exact same way we've seen most battle royals end in the last few years. But yeah, overall entertaining, apart from probably the last 60 seconds. So you can't.
It was entertaining. It was entertaining, and but I think they probably gave her the hometown rub there. I think that with her being a hometown girl, and I think our next match might kind of have a similar feeling there with the hometown individuals. But let's have a talk about this. So earlier on in the week, and it was a WWE.com exclusive, Hawkins and Ryder, so Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder, challenged the Revival to a tag title match for their Raw Tag Team Championships. And here we are. It's match number 16 on the card. The last match to be added was very little build for this, which was quite surprising because if you think about it, Kurt Hawkins does have a story with his 2-year plus losing streak. So Kurt Hawkins was defending his 269-day or match losing streak here. So had they have built this up properly over the last few weeks leading up to WrestleMania, it might have meant a bit more. On the day, they kind of obviously the story was within the match itself, and they certainly kind of built up his losing streak. I'll go through some of the key spots here, then we'll discuss it. So the Revival are getting their first ever WrestleMania match as current Raw Tag Team Champions, of course. Dash Wilder gets a huge pop when he comes out because he was the one you may remember or you may have seen from that fan footage who kind of smashed Bret Hart's attacker from the Hall of Fame in the face, giving him a bloody nose on Saturday night. Michael Cole made a smart-ass comment about Booker T, who I think was on commentary for this match, saying that Booker T could be a 3-time Hall of Fame next year if he gets inducted as one of his less-known gimmicks as G.I. Bro. Zack Ryder hits a double neck break on both members of the Revival. Everyone is urging Ryder to make the hot tag to Hawkins, but the Revival are wise, and they kind of knock Hawkins off the apron and cut the ring in half. The Revival are making quick tags and using their double team moves to full effect. Hawkins does eventually get the hot tag and goes to work on both members of the Revival. Ryder gets the tag back in and executes a suplex on Dawson, sending both members tumbling to the floor on the outside. That was quite an impressive spot. The match spills to the outside with a brainbuster from Dawson onto Hawkins on the floor. There's huge "Let's go Hawkins" chants from the 80,000 plus fans in the MetLife Stadium, and Dawson rolls Hawkins back into the ring with Hawkins still out of it at this point after the brainbuster. However, Dawson picks Hawkins up to his feet, but Hawkins rolls Dawson up with a small package for a shocking 3 count, and Kurt Hawkins beats his losing streak by becoming one half of the Raw Tag Team Champions. So they built the story up really, really well. I thought this was a well-executed match. The Revival played their part. Everyone was waiting for that hot tag, and once it happened, we soon had new Raw Tag Team Champions. So, like I say, they could have done a lot more with this match had they have built it up, but I thought it was a successful match on the day. It certainly delivered. What did you guys think?
Loved it. I absolutely love Ryder and Hawkins. They have a show about wrestling toys that they collect, which I'm obsessed with. I just think that they're so cool. They're like real life best bros, which is my favorite thing about wrestlers. And they were amazing. They were so fun. And I know that Chris won't agree with me here, but controversial. But I really like it when there's like a quick roll up for a win in a match. And Chris is always like, that's a terrible way to end a match.
I like a definitive win, really.
Yeah.
I like there to be a clear winner, or if it is a controversial win for the story, I'm not really against it. But I think a roll up is I think if you're a professional sports entertainer, you will know how to get out of a roll up quite quickly. So, but I do want to say I think it's great that Zach and Kurt have got a moment for themselves for the first time in a while. They've been stable. The last few years they've been really good. Everything they do, they kind of make everything worth watching, but never really get the credit for it. So glad to see them on it. Agree with yourself, Jonas. There could have been a good build up for this, but overall, again, glad that somebody delivered in a match. It was a worthy match to watch.
And the revival was also really, really good as well. Let's not forget, they haven't been used maybe to the best of their potential. So the two of them really making it, a better match than maybe people thought it would have been because there was no build up, might do brilliant things for their wrestling careers from now on. I hope it does. Hope it elevates them.
Yeah, I think they've been, although their championship reign wasn't massively lengthy, I think they've been credible, champions. They certainly delivered in the heel spot whenever they defended their championships. And I think that they're going to be a lot of people's favourite tag team, especially after what happened at the Hall of Fame on Saturday, where one of the revival kind of hit the attacker of Bret Hart, who kind of tackled him down to the ground. Did you guys see that? Have you seen the clips of that online of where Bret Hart got tackled to the ground at the Hall of Fame on Saturday?
So sad.
Yeah, there's still no logic
like
to it, right? But I mean, yeah,
very upsetting.
I guess it's a shame it happened to Bret. I felt the way he dealt with it was absolute class. Other people would have just left, or it would have got a little bit even more heated than it did.
I cried like a baby for the rest of the speech after that.
Top job for all the wrestlers getting involved to make sure that everyone was okay, especially New Day, making sure Natalya was out of there as quickly as possible as well. Yeah. I thought that everybody just showed it was a class act, and if there's anyone else that wants to do it in the future, they better be prepared.
It's the worst place to try and attack someone, like in a room full of burly wrestlers.
Well, this is it, and the first person to nearly kind of get the attacker before he even reached Bret Hart was Ronda Rousey's husband, Travis Brown, and he dived into that ring and it would very nearly had him, but he is a very skilled mixed martial artist, and I think he's one of the leading contenders in UFC at one point, and you saw him kind of laying a few chops there, and David Boy Smith Jr. was getting involved as well, and of course that now infamous punch from the revival there. But let's have a look at the next match, and this is the final match on the pre-show, the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. So this is its fifth year, and I think it's been on the pre-show most years, to be honest with you. You had wrestlers in there that weren't on the main card, such as Bobby Roode, Chad Gable, The Ascension, Andrade, Mustafa Ali, Tucker and Dojovic, the Heavy Machinery, the Lucha House Party, Tyler Breeze, No Way Jose, Jinder Mahal, Apollo Crews, Rhino, and Braun Strowman. And of course, you had the two comedians from Saturday Night Live in there as well, Colin Jost and Michael Shea. So there was plenty of eliminations, mainly from Strowman in the first couple of minutes. Slater takes a heavy bump against the guardrail as he gets eliminated. Mustafa Ali gets rid of No Way Jose. The Hardys eliminated Rhino. Andrade eliminates Kalisto and Gable. So it's down to the final few. You had Strowman eliminate both members of the Hardy Boys. So Jeff and Matt gets eliminated by Strowman before turning his attention to the two Saturday Night Jokers who were kind of hiding outside the ring up until the last few. They thought that they could eliminate Strowman as he kind of tries to get rid of the Hardy Boys. So very similar to the 1992 Royal Rumble when you had Hogan on the outside and Ric Flair tumble Sid over the ropes. It's kind of, they were trying to get that sort of elimination on Braun Strowman. But Jost then introduces his therapist, who then gets beaten to a pulp by Strowman. Strowman's having none of it before he slaps Shea to the floor. Strowman wins the Battle Royal by tossing Colin Jost over the top rope onto the waiting pile of eliminated wrestlers before becoming the fifth winner of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. So it's more of a comedy Battle Royal, to be honest with you. Braun Strowman, gets gets his moment, his WrestleMania moment. Wasn't the best WrestleMania battle royals by any stretch of the imagination. Like I said, it's mainly there to kind of highlight Colin Jost and Michael Shea. But what did you think of this one, guys? I was kind of glad to see the end of it personally, but did you enjoy it at all?
Wow. I tell you what, I will say this. New York is a comedy town, right? So compared to other kind of big cities that they've been to, comedy is a massive part of New York's culture. So an SNL, right, it's been going for a million years now. So that's kind of an important part of everyone who lives there's culture, and I get why they put it in there.
Okay.
They could have done it differently. I don't like Braun Strowman, so I didn't want him to win anyway. I thought it was ridiculous I thought it was poorly choreographed. Nobody really got a good spot. And it was, compared to the women's battle royale, it was just a shambles. So overall, didn't like it.
I feel it's a bit. I think I also didn't like it, but I think the worst thing is that it's almost making it like this. If they continue it down this route, it's just disrespectful to Andre the Giant, really.
Oh God, yeah.
Like that's the only thing I keep thinking is that this, even when this first happened, it was almost like a chance to give people who hadn't yet had a big moment, or maybe a bit too old for it, but they had something else that they could now do to be a part of a show like WrestleMania and still deliver and do something good, or to build up, like it's kind of like a stepping stone for new people, which I think they're totally missing the trick of what a battle royal could actually be.
That's right.
I feel like that about
So
most of the
it's a
things
shame
that happen in WWE nowadays. Like a lot of it is missed tricks. So it's a shame.
I think you're both onto a good point here. I think there needs to be something at the end of it. There needs to be a prize or a award or potentially a future title shot or something like that. And like Chris said, it needs to be a platform for newer wrestlers, maybe the odd appearance from somebody from NXT or NXT UK, or just something as a bit of a launching pad for somebody new. Now, I know a previous winner of the Andre the Giant Battle Royal has been Braun Strowman, and he was on NXT at the time when he won it. I think it was in Dallas in 2016. And then he immediately made his debut on the main roster the night after. And that was obviously the plan for him, was to make his main roster debut on the kind of Battle Royal, and they get promoted the following night. And that worked for him. And, he's been a prominent player on the main roster since. But they should use this more as an opportunity to get some of the younger or lesser known talent over. But also, failing that, there needs to be a reward at the end of it, basically. And they're kind of missing a trick, as you quite rightly said, Heather. But let's move on to the main show. Because Alexa Bliss, if you wasn't aware, was the host of WrestleMania 35, and she came out and she said that she can make WrestleMania moments just by snapping her fingers, and that's exactly what she did. And who should come out? The red and yellow Hulkamania. Hulk Hogan made his WrestleMania return, and he came out to tell us to welcome us to the MetLife Center. So not only did he kind of make a joke about him getting the name of the Superdome wrong in 2014 when he called it the Silverdome, but in his attempt to make amends, he actually called the MetLife Stadium the MetLife Center. So Hulk Hogan botches once again. We then see Paul Heyman march to the ring to say that if Brock Lesnar is not on last, then they are not waiting, and the match for the Universal Championship opens the show. So that's something that we haven't seen before, the Universal Championship open a big card like this. But there we have it, Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins for the Universal Championship. Now, just to rattle through some of the key moments. Now, it wasn't a lengthy match by any stretch of the imagination, only went about 3 minutes. But Lesnar attacks Rollins before the match can even get underway. Lesnar hits an F5 in the outside before brutalizing Rollins against the side of the ring, before throwing Rollins over the announce desk, not once but twice. Lesnar throws Rollins back into the ring and demands that the ref rings the bell to start the match. The ref says that he has to check on Rollins first to see if he can go, and then the match does eventually get started. Lesnar attempts an F5 in the center of the ring, only for Rollins to escape and hit a low blow before nailing the champ with a curb stomp. He hits the curb stomp a second and a third time, and then Rollins covers, and the ref counts to 3. And then within 3 minutes, we have a new Universal Champion. Seth Rollins opens the show with a win and a new champion. Guys, a bit of a shocking way to start WrestleMania. Did you enjoy it? What did you think of the match?
Yeah. Love Seth Rollins. Love a kind of a Brock Lesnar beatdown. Massive fan of Paul Heyman. He's probably my favorite person in wrestling. I liked the Hulk Hogan start as well. I thought that was quite cool. And then to have it interrupted by Paul, just like, I don't care about this. WrestleMania doesn't mean anything to us. Look, we can go to Vegas anytime we want. I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what I want to see. I want to see people just doing what they need to do to get the job done. But unfortunately, Brock couldn't do it. And this is good because Seth is kind of, I think, ready to kind of move up in the roster, move up, become the champion again. So I was glad that he won. I'd like to see more from him. Whether or not I want to see him stay at WWE forever is another question mark. But yeah, good match. Well done. Nice and quick. Nice and brutal.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Chris?
Yeah, one of the things I've always liked about Brock's matches is the fact that they do feel a little bit more impactful. Like, regardless of who he's fighting, there's always that big fight feel to it, that feel of anything could happen at any moment. The kind of feel that. Yeah. And it's just something that not a lot of wrestlers have managed to do well, but Brock's always done it just because of his intensity. And I think Seth did excellent to combat it in a way where you couldn't really question it, whether that was, I know there was a low blow involved, and it's kind of a Brock can come back any minute now, whether it's in 6 months or 6 weeks, and say, you know what, you didn't actually beat me, you cheated to beat me, let's do it again. And I'll watch it. I think it's good to see such a strong match early on the card as well. Yeah. I think it was a really good decision because it just gets you hyped up really early. So I thought it was a big win for Seth. I hope they match him with some really good people moving forward. It should be a good run for him.
Yeah, who would you like to see him go up against as a future contender to his championship then? I mean, now that, because Brock appeared to kind of hold the championship hostage almost for quite a while. But who would you like to see go up against Seth in the future? Who do you think would be a good contender?
As long as it's not Shane McMahon, I think I'll be
fair enough.
I'd like to see him against Finn Balor, Finn and Seth.
Finn and Seth would be great. The people in the next match, Orton and AJ, they could do great things for Seth's run. Even just if Seth were to hold it for another year now, he could go through quite a few big players and it still be a legitimate run and a big thing for what his career needs now.
So Sammy would be quite good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And like I say, we'll talk more about possible contenders as the show rolls on. It's good to have another individual other than Brock Lesnar carry the championship, and I think he's going to be a fantastic champion. So let's have a look at the match that supposedly was going to open the show until plans change. You know what they say, if you can't close the show, it's always best to open the show. So that's probably why Brock Lesnar got his way there to open the show. But the next show on the card, the next match on the card was AJ Styles versus Randy Orton. So this has had a fairly good build on SmackDown Live the last few weeks. They have got quite personal in their promos to one another. Just to rattle through kind of some of the key spots here. Styles starts the match with a forearm smash, nailing Orton on the outside. Orton comes back, launching Styles from the ring apron into the barrier. AJ applies a calf crusher, only for Orton to grab hold of the bottom rope. AJ then nails a springboard 450, landing heavily on Orton, but only managed to get a 2 count for his trouble there. Orton recovers enough to execute a massive superplex from the top turnbuckle. That was quite an impressive spot, and both guys seem to suffer on that move. Orton does hit an RKO onto AJ Styles, but only for a 2 count. A lot of people were surprised. A lot of people were waiting for an RKO, and when they got it, it didn't win the match. Orton set Styles up for an RKO from the top turnbuckle, but AJ was able to wriggle out of the move to kick Orton to the outside, where AJ manages to connect with a phenomenal forearm to the outside. Then he hits another phenomenal forearm whilst they're back into the ring, and that was enough to win the match. So the phenomenal forearm gets it, and he covers, gets the 1, 2, 3. AJ Styles wins this match. I think people were expecting or were looking for kind of the next, WrestleMania RKO. They didn't get a WrestleMania RKO, not one off of a moonsault or anything like that we've seen in the past. But what did you think of the match? And were you surprised that AJ Styles won the match? Give us your thoughts.
No, I thought AJ deserved to win the match. Again, not really a massive Randy Orton fan. I think it's probably got something to do with the fact that I didn't watch him wrestle at all during the kind of beginning of his career. So I don't know him, and I haven't got a connection to him. Yeah. Whereas I do with AJ. I think he's brilliant, and I think he's worked very hard to get where he is. Again, another one of those wrestlers I don't think is being used to his full potential. To be honest with you, I think it was probably one of the more forgettable matches of the night, which is a shame because I've seen AJ live, and he is one of the most talented wrestlers. So it's a shame that they didn't put something together that really enticed me.
No, I do have to agree with you there. I thought the build to the match did get a lot of people excited for this match. Now, I don't think anybody would ever consider Randy Orton one of the more technically gifted wrestlers in the world, but he can pull off a good match. Certainly when he's in his heel Randy Orton persona, he's much more effective as a heel than he is a babyface. And I thought the two, they had every chance and the full potential to turn this into a great match. Maybe had they have had another 5 minutes, maybe had there have been a WrestleMania worthy RKO or something to get people out of their seats. But it was okay for what it was. Could have gone another few more minutes maybe. Just didn't quite get into third gear in my opinion. What did you think, Chris, on this one?
Yeah, it was a match I was really looking forward to. AJ is one of my favorites, and I do, as much as I know that a lot of people don't like Orton, I actually feel like he does a great job at making people be able to like wrestle at their best. I think he's got that kind of point to him now, and that's kind of all he's done at pay-per-views for the last few years anyway, is wrestle people and give them a good match so that they have something to go from. Yeah. I was surprised AJ won it, and again, obviously waiting for a big RKO moment. But I think those two things just threw me off a little bit. But I did actually quite enjoy the match. Would have been a good start to WrestleMania on most other WrestleMania cards, and just a little bit upset to see AJ's not higher up on the bill by now. And maybe Orton versus Angle would have been a better farewell match for Angle. Was my main thing there. That was my only real thought. I generally all did enjoy the match though. I actually thought it was a strong match.
Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at the next match, and it was for the SmackDown Tag Team title. So this was a four-way match pitting the champions, the Usos, versus The Bar, versus Rusev and Nakamura, versus Ricochet and Aleister Black. So Ricochet and Aleister Black said goodbye for the final time to NXT in their takeover match on Friday night, and that was an absolutely awesome match when they lost against the War Raiders for the NXT Tag Team Championships. But here they are, in the space of 7 days, they had a Raw Tag Team Championship match against the Revival last Monday, to being in an NXT Tag Team Championship match against the War Raiders on Friday, and then going up against the Usos, The Bar, Rusev and Nakamura for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. So I don't think that's ever been done before, where the same team has been in contention or in a match for the three tag team championships all within the space of 7 days. So quite an impressive feat for them. It obviously shows that WWE management are quite high on them. So obviously you get your fantastic entrances. I was blown away by Ricochet and Aleister Black's entrance. Definitely fantastic WrestleMania debuts for those two. And there's a strange rule in this match, and the same for the women's tag title match a bit later on, where there's only two teams allowed in the ring at any one time, where you're kind of relying on people to kind of make a tag when you're over in their corner, just for you to get involved in the match. But in quite an entertaining spot, Sheamus gave each of his opponents 10 clubbing blows to the chest, while partner Cesaro gave Ricochet a giant swing, which lasted or seemed to last forever. Poor guy must have been so dizzy on that exchange. That was a really good spot. I don't think we've seen from the bar before where Sheamus took out his frustration on everybody else while Ricochet was being, turned around in a giant swing for about 2 or 3 minutes. There's quite an impressive Tower of Doom spot. With Ricochet, who was on top of the Tower of Doom and should have taken the worst of it, but instead landed on his feet, which was absolutely amazing. Ricochet nails a 630 on Sheamus, but the pinfall was broken up before the 3 count. Cesaro clocks Jey Uso with a huge super kick from a top rope dive. So that was quite impressive. The Usos did retain their championships after 10 minutes with a double frog splash onto Sheamus, and they hooked the leg and got the 3 counts. So a really entertaining match from all 4 sides. They all kind of managed to get their moves in, and a good ending, a good WrestleMania debut for Black and Ricochet, and some quite memorable spots during this match. Heather, I'll start with you. What did you think of this match? Did you enjoy it, and what were some of the takeaway moments for you?
Yeah, I really did enjoy this match. This match contained all of the wrestlers I would love to see singles men. I'd like to see them in kind of singles matches. And I don't know if they're quite all there yet. But that's what I would like to see happen with these guys. You've got Nakamura and Rusev, you've got Cesaro and Sheamus. They weren't always in a tag team. Same with Aleister Black and Ricochet. So
very true, yeah.
I mean, I'd prefer to see them all battling each other one-on-one. I think that'd be more entertaining. I do think that rule is a bit stupid, and I'd like to see more people in there at once. If you're going to do it, if you're going to have a big match with lots of people, give me all the guys in there at once. That's what I want to see.
I think at the end of the day, that rule got thrown out the window quite quickly, because it appeared that everybody was kind of all involved in one way or another, all at the same time. But Chris, what about yourself? Did you enjoy this match?
Yeah, really enjoyed it. I definitely agree that there's probably a few heel turns coming our way for any one of these tag teams. Really, they could get away with it and have a good feud match at WrestleMania next year. I'd like to see that with any of them. Really glad that Black and Ricochet got a chance to show their stuff, and hats off to them for having so many matches in such a short space of time. It will really be interesting to see if they can keep that up over the years, and if they use so much on Raw and also NXT and any pay-per-view going on. It'd be great. It'd be great to see them more before they make that jump.
Yeah, I think to Heather's point, we got the kind of superstars shake-up next week, of course, so it won't surprise me if we see a lot of these teams being separated onto separate brands. Certainly Black and Ricochet could probably do with it. I mean, I think that now that they've got a bit of attention and got a few matches under their belt as a tag team to kind of introduce them to the WWE universe, the main roster audience. I think that now that people have become a lot more familiar with them, they're going to be utilised more as singles wrestlers going forward, but we shall see when the shake-up happens next week. So let's move on to the next match. It's the best in the world, Shane McMahon versus The Miz. Now, this was a Falls Count Anywhere match, so just adding that kind of element to it would obviously kind of add more opportunities for things to get more interesting out in the crowd and around the arena. So Shane gets the ring announcer to introduce him 3 times as the best in the world, Shane McMahon. I thought that was quite entertaining, where he was kind of conducting him almost like a conductor when it was time for him to say his name. Shane starts the match by grabbing The Miz's dad, George Mizannon's face, to get The Miz's attention. Shane lays The Miz out with a shot to the head with a TV monitor. George Mizannon gets into the ring to fight for the honour of his son. So that was quite an entertaining spot. Shane starts
so much.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we'd do the same for our kids, wouldn't we? We'd do the same. But Shane starts to beat up on Miz's dad. when a bloody Miz comes back into the ring to defend his dad and to fight off Shane. Miz then launches himself over the ringside barriers to pummel away onto Shane before they fight into the crowd and around the foreign announce desks. Shane gets clotheslined over a guardrail onto a golf buggy and shockingly actually falls off of the golf buggy onto the hard concrete floor below, which must have hurt. Shane then climbs a TV gantry, which the Miz suplexes Shane off. And they fall a good 15 feet. Shane was on top of the Miz following that suplex, and the referee counted Shane McMahon as the winner there. So Shane McMahon got the 3 count. Both wrestlers went for the 15-foot tumble off of the TV gantry there. Hell of a move, hell of a spot, hell of a WrestleMania moment we'll probably see kind of over the many years to come, I'm sure. But that was one hell of a suplex and a fairly good falls count anyway match, with Shane taking some fairly risky falls, but eventually taking the win. Chris, starting with you, did you enjoy this match? What were some of the takeaway moments for yourself and this match here?
I know I gave him a little bit of grief earlier, but I do actually really like Shane and what he offers to definitely to a pay-per-view. I mean, if you go back to when he first started wrestling, some of his feuds that he had were just great, and you always knew that he's just willing to do whatever he can to give a great moment. And he's actually turned that into just having great matches now as well. They always end on a big moment because that's what people expect. But yeah, I think it fitted perfectly on the card. Not a match I was excited or waiting to see, but definitely a match I knew I would enjoy when watching it. So that's really important. And the Miz just seems like he's out to have fun at the moment as well. So I think it's a good pairing, especially for the time in both of their careers.
Definitely. Heather, what about yourself?
I wanted to see Vince McMahon come out and start to defend Shane when George Mizanin was in the ring. I was like, Vince is coming. It's going to be a dad-on-dad match.
Have a mixed tag match.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that could have been.
If Vince is listening, that's what you should have done.
I don't know how George Mizanin would have fared in that, but it would have been. It definitely would have been entertaining. But quite, for what it was, and I don't think many people went into this match with high expectations. I think it exceeded just about everybody's expectations. Some of the bumps that Shane McMahon took and that suplex at the end is definitely a memorable moment. Certainly a WrestleMania moment for years to come. But let's move on to the next match, which was for the women's WWE Women's Tag Team titles. So obviously you had the champions going in, the Boss and the Hug Connection, Sasha Banks and Bayley, going up against Nia Jax and Tamina versus the Iconics versus Beth Phoenix and Natalya. So this was a short but sweet match. The Iconics eventually won the match after Beth Phoenix executed a glam slam from the top turnbuckle onto Bayley, which was an awesome spot. And Beth Phoenix has certainly done herself nothing but favours since she's kind of come out of retirement leading up to this tag match. But she glam slammed Bayley from the top turnbuckle. Peyton Royce, however, bundled Beth Phoenix out of the ring, allowing her partner Billie Kay to make the cover onto Bayley and got the cheap win, the 1-2-3, and the Iconics are the new tag team champions. So I don't think many people are hold the Iconics in much great esteem for their wrestling skills, but as a gimmick, I personally think they're absolutely fantastic. And I don't think they're going to pull off any kind of 5-star matches anytime in the future. But I think for their characters, I thought this is a good win, and quite a popular win by a lot of people on the internet. Guys, what did you think? Heather, I'll start with you. Did you enjoy this match, and what do you think about the Iconics?
I would absolutely love to have a wrestling pairing with my best friend, and if I could do that, that's the kind of thing that we would do. We would have a silly gimmick. We both wouldn't be very good, but we would make everybody love us and hate us at the same time. So I love them for that, because I can see myself doing it. I thought it was a really good match. I liked that it didn't go on too long. I also really liked that it wasn't very Nia Jax heavy. So some of these matches can be a little bit them just trying to give her a spot, and I think it was very fair. But I absolutely think the standout here was Beth Phoenix. She's incredible. What she can do in that ring is inspirational. I think a lot of the girls in that ring, the women in that ring, look up to her, and they all kind of support and respect each other, and I really like to see that in the ring.
Chris.
Apart from the Iconics.
Yeah, I think it was good to see Beth get another kind of good spot where she gets a chance to show exactly how talented she is. Maybe overall I didn't really enjoy the match. I thought it was okay, but maybe I kind of felt that it was the only match on the main card that should have been on the pre-show.
Okay.
And I don't think that's I don't know why. I just didn't really like it.
That's why you think that.
No, not because of that.
Very good. Now, one match that definitely belonged on the main card and one match that's had an excellent build is our next match, and it's Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship. So I'm sure you'd agree, and you've probably seen, SmackDown in the weeks leading up to WrestleMania, the build to this and the story behind this and all the obstacles that Kofi Kingston has had to kind of jump through to be able to get this match in the first place has really kind of turned him into, one of the more popular characters on the WWE roster. Everybody was kind of rooting for Kofi Kingston both before and during this match, and Kofi-mania definitely kind of had me hooked before the big show. Kind of how excited were you guys looking forward to this match kind of ahead of WrestleMania, before this match? Did this kind of had Kofi-mania reached you yet? Were you kind of hyped up for this one? Tell me how you were feeling before this match anyway.
Yeah, very hyped about it. We love Kofi. We think he's fab.
He's been underutilized for years. He's just like, he could have been a bigger player for so long. And then there's even been years where New Day weren't even at WrestleMania, apart from when they were the year they were hosts, and there was that kind of big ladder match, which you think they would have done amazing things in, but really it just,
because they're very talented
they weren't there. They're so great, and they're always a highlight when you go to live events. So I think Kofi's always been a standout for me, and someone. Between him and Big E, I think they both really deserve a good singles run push and can do amazing things. So I'm glad that this storyline came about, and even more happy that it's kind of against Daniel Bryan, who had a similar crowd build where everybody wanted him to have the championship and be champion. It didn't happen for him for years.
It's all very organic.
It shows that the fans do still have some say in some things. Obviously, they're never going to get the say in everything, which is probably for the best, to be honest. But there's still
we've got some good ideas, though, right?
It's still really good that it's kind of come full circle for Daniel Bryan as well, in that way that he can help someone get over the way that he got over.
He's become quite a good heel now. I actually was really skeptical of him becoming a heel in the first place. I didn't think it was a good move for him. I didn't like it. And then now, that opinion has just completely changed. I think he's doing a really, really good job of it.
This is it from going as the most beloved babyface, one of the most beloved babyfaces in the history of WWE, to going from that to one of the most hated heels. It's just testament to Daniel Bryan and what he's capable of, not just as a wrestler, but kind of as a character, as an individual. He's got such a great mind for the wrestling business that he can do that, be the best at either being a heel or a babyface. But let's go through some of the key spots anyway. So obviously Kofi is accompanied to the ring by his New Day mates, and Daniel Bryan is of course accompanied by Rowan. So we'll kind of see a little bit more from New Day and Rowan a little bit later on, I'm sure. Kofi goes to the air early on in the match with a Fosbury flop over the top rope onto Rowan and Bryan on the outside. Kofi takes to the sky once again, this time slingshotting himself out of the ring, finding nothing but desk on this occasion after Bryan moves out of the way from an attempted move onto the announcer's desk there. Kofi does manage to get 2 count a little bit later on in the match with an SOS. Daniel Bryan applies his label lock, but Kofi was just able to reach the bottom rope to escape. Rowan gets involved on the outside until Kofi hits his Trouble in Paradise on the outside onto Rowan. Big E and Woods executes their Midnight Hour on Rowan, taking him out of the match, or taking him out of the equation, I should say. Bryan connects with his running knee, but Kofi just kicks out on the 2 count. Daniel Bryan stomps away on Kofi's face before putting on the label lock once again. It's actually for the 3rd time he slaps on the label lock onto Kofi Kingston. Kofi manages to escape and then stomp away on Daniel Bryan before connecting with a Trouble in Paradise, covers the champion, and we get the 1, 2, 3 Kofi-mania runs wild. Kofi Kingston is our new WWE champion, and the match went 22 minutes. definitely the highlight of WrestleMania for me. But everybody, all 82,000 people in the MetLife Stadium went absolutely crazy, and I'm sure everybody else watching at home went crazy for this moment. Kofi Kingston, the new WWE champion, and who would have thought it a few months ago when the focus was very much on individuals like Mustafa Ali or maybe AJ Styles, or Samoa Joe. Certainly not Kofi Kingston. He kind of pulled himself into the equation in the gauntlet match before Elimination Chamber, did really well in the Elimination Chamber, and he's been everybody's kind of people's champion ever since. And here we have it, the culmination of this is that Kofi Kingston is our new WWE champion. Chris, I'll start with you. What did you think of the match? And are you happy that Kofi Kingston finally got his day?
Great match, great spot for Kofi. Really happy about the outcome. Didn't think it would actually happen. I thought the fans wouldn't get what they wanted, and maybe even earlier on in the night, Seth winning might have. You always start questioning, like, are there going to be a lot of title changes? So when you do see quite a few on the early on in the card, you start to worry and doubt that you're actually really going to see, Kofi-mania happen.
Yeah.
Loved the fact that New Day and were by his side and gave him a new belt as well. I thought that was a fun addition. Would have loved to have seen what would have happened if he didn't win and they had the belt there anyway, and kind of just said, "Don't worry, Kofi, you're a champion in our eyes. Here's a belt for you."
But and the t-shirt.
And loads of t-shirts that are now not worth anything.
I didn't like the new belt. I thought, you know what? Progressive WWE using an eco-friendly belt. Let's keep that. I didn't like that at all, but
I definitely would have wanted a new belt if I were champion. I would have just said, no, I'm not doing this.
This was made of wood. Yeah.
They were selling Daniel Bryan's hemp and oak belt at WrestleMania in the Superstore for $1,000.
Real belt.
Yeah, they actually got replicas available to buy, or certainly the one that I saw in somebody's video was $1,000. It might have been signed by Daniel Bryan, but that's the most expensive bit of hemp you're ever going to find on the market. But
crikey.
There we go.
I'll just make one myself out of a twig.
But I'm sure you'll agree it was a fantastic moment and a great culmination to the build and to the story, and a popular win, a great match, and certainly one of the highlights of WrestleMania this year. But let's have a look at the next match, moving on swiftly. Samoa Joe versus Rey Mysterio. So I reported on last week's Wrestling with Johners that Rey Mysterio was kind of suffering with a bit of an ankle injury, or certainly that was what was coming out on the internet following. I think he was meant to have wrestled Kurt Angle in one of his farewell matches on his farewell tour on Monday Night Raw last week. That didn't happen. There was lots of concern that Rey Mysterio might be injured. As it turns out, he was suffering with a bit of an ankle injury. But his match against Samoa Joe for the United States Championship, Samoa Joe obviously going in as the champion. This is actually Samoa Joe's WrestleMania debut. Now, he's been with the company for over 2 years, but the last two WrestleMania, he's either been injured or recovering from an injury, and not been able to recover in time, not been built into any storylines, or been on the shelf in the lead up to WrestleMania. So this is his WrestleMania debut. And as I said, Rey was doubtful for this match after suffering a bit of an ankle injury. But Rey was kind of quick out the gate here as the bell rang. Rey did hit a DDT on the bigger Samoa Joe, and he did follow up with a 619. But there was no more offense from Mysterio here. Joe won in dominant fashion here with a win in under 2 minutes after putting on the Coquina Clutch submission hold on Rey Mysterio here. And the match actually won by stoppage. I don't think I saw Rey Mysterio tap, but the referee kind of called for the bell, and Samoa Joe retained his United States Championship. Yes, Samoa Joe, I think, was one of only 2 champions to retain their championship on Sunday night. It was short and sweet, only went a couple of minutes. Give us a quick recap on your thoughts on this match, guys.
Loved it. Yeah, love Samoa Joe. Best entrance music of anyone currently in WWE.
Yeah, I like his music too.
Yeah, he's lots of fun. Also love Rey Mysterio. Seen him live as well. He's an incredible wrestler to watch. They didn't need to do any more than they did, and they hid a potential injury well through the match's pace and power.
Chris.
I think they should start doing more with Samoa Joe.
Yeah.
Unfortunate that, as you say, this is his WrestleMania debut and it was so short. Obviously, I think it was probably the best thing to do because of Rey Mysterio. But again, I think a different storyline or a different attempt. Maybe again, if this was, maybe I just want all matches.
AJ.
Yeah, like there could have been any other match there, but maybe it was a bit too late in the announcement for Rey Mysterio and whether he'd be okay or not. So I felt they did what they had to, and it's just a bit of a shame that Samoa Joe's had so much bad luck over the years. I hope he gets a good run.
Yeah, and it's good to see Samoa Joe get his WrestleMania moment here, WrestleMania win in quite dominant fashion. So it kind of made him look good while retaining his championship and didn't really do Rey Mysterio too much harm in the process. I'm sure he doesn't really need a championship to remain popular, in my opinion. And certainly since he returned to the WWE last year, he's been as good as ever, to be honest with you. But looking at the next match, a slightly different match, Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre. So there was no championship on the line, and for the first time in 4 or 5 WrestleManias, Roman Reigns is not involved in the main events. But the build to this on Monday Night Raws over the last few weeks have been pretty good, with Drew McIntyre kind of getting the better of their kind of physical activity between the two of them leading up to this. Drew McIntyre being quite dominant in the build and in the storyline ahead of this match. And it was great to see Drew McIntyre in a featured match at WrestleMania here against Roman Reigns, who of course is not in the main event of WrestleMania since 2015, actually. But nonetheless, Roman tries a drive-by drop kick, but finds nothing but a hard apron. So McIntyre kind of gets the upper hand there. McIntyre suplexes Roman with a suplex to the outside. Drew McIntyre then executes an Alabama slam on Roman for a close near fall in the early stages of this match. Roman Reigns does recover to hit a drive-by and a Samoan drop on the outside. Reigns then nails McIntyre with a Superman punch before executing a spear for the pinfall victory. So Roman pulls off a win against Drew McIntyre here, McIntyre was an inch away from winning this match only a few minutes earlier, but a quick comeback from Roman Reigns, and it's great to see McIntyre involved in a featured match here at WrestleMania. It was a different type of match to what you'd usually see Roman Reigns be involved in at WrestleMania, but it was good to see Drew McIntyre, like I say, in a featured match against one of the WWE's top wrestlers. So it shows that the WWE have a lot of faith in Drew McIntyre. What did you think of this one, guys? It wasn't anything special by any stretch of the imagination, but I think they did what they needed to do at the end.
I feel a little bit like it's actually. I think you're right. Drew McIntyre does deserve to be in a few more big matches, but I feel that Roman Reigns going further down the card is just they're now giving up a bit on Roman Reigns.
Okay,
and that's just.
Nothing wrong with that. His finishing move is a Superman punch. Like
he's needed a new finisher for years, but the fact that he's not going to have one now. That's it. The Superman punch is what it is. But it's just I feel like it was the closest to almost like a toilet break match there was in the second half of the pay-per-view for me. I just didn't really get into it. I did watch it all, but I just wasn't really over the top. I think Drew did great, but there wasn't really much going on.
Really like Drew. I think years and years and years ago, he could have been something amazing in the WWE, and it didn't work out.
It was part of 3MB. They were entertaining for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think he definitely he brought something to the match. I thought Roman was good too, to be very honest with you. So I didn't really have any problems with either of them. I just don't think that anything is going to make me endeared to either of them in a way that I am to other wrestlers. So they're just not as important to me. And I think that's probably how a lot of the universe feel. They feel like then these two wrestlers are not as important to them as other ones might be. So there's just no point watching them.
I think it was largely forgettable, to be honest with you. And maybe had there have been a championship, involved, then it might have had a bit more interest, might have gone a bit longer. But it was what it was. No doubt we'll kind of see this feud continue on Raw. But moving on now, Chris, you are kind of you're your other persona, you're otherwise known as Half Decent, the rapper. I want your opinion on this next segment. He started with Elias, who was on drums, and then we saw another Elias on piano, and then Elias then gets introduced in the ring on guitar, and the three of them play this quite impressive song. So that was a good collaboration between the three Eliases there. But then he's rudely interrupted by the Doctor of Thugonomics, the return of John Cena's gimmick from 2004, 2005. In fact, I think he introduced it first in 2002. And this was quite an entertaining segment. I don't think they had an official match, but the Doctor did manage to kind of lay waste to Elias with an AA, or as he used to call it, the FU. Maybe this is the PG era nowadays, and then a 5-knuckle shuffle. So a fun segment there, but quite nostalgic, and more of the kind of the heel Doctor of Thugonomics, John Cena, that a lot of us kind of remember from them early 2000s. This was a lot of fun, and a lot of people really, really like this. A lot more popular than some of the more recent WrestleMania segments we've seen from John Cena. What did you think to the return of the Doctor of Thugonomics, Chris?
So I never really liked the Doctor of Thugonomics when he was around, but I always kind of like I had that soft spot for him. I was kind of like, I didn't really like him, or I thought he could do more, but his rhymes are always terrible, but they are just fun. And I felt that this segment was so well done, because everybody was expecting The Undertaker. I think it was for a long time said that this was going to be the plan for The Undertaker, which if you haven't seen Raw yet, there's a spoiler there for what happens on Raw. But the fact that John Cena came out and just for the first time in a while just didn't really, he went back to not taking himself too seriously. And I mean, with the proposal, with the Undertaker match, with everything he's been trying to do at WrestleMania, I think it's good that he just accepted to have fun. And just thought, I'm going to go out there and really have a laugh. I think it was a really good segment. So
I don't think I've ever heard a better rap.
So Chris, it wasn't your inspiration to kind of get into rapping then. The Doctor of Thugonomics wasn't your role model in rapping then.
He wasn't, no. But there was when I started recording for other people, the first person I had to come round and recorded some stuff over some instrumentals I made, and they actually ended up stealing some of John Cena's lyrics, and I didn't know for about 6 months. And I don't know if it was because they were I just didn't see them because they were on Raw, and then eventually someone said to me, they're like, they sound a lot like the Doctor of Thugonomics, and I was like, what?
I never saw Doctor of Thugonomics. This is my first ever experience of him. I've never even watched like an old one. Didn't know anything about it. I absolutely loved it. I was laughing. I was crying. I was like, how come he suddenly got so sexy all of a sudden? Like, what's going on? I was blown away. And I hate Elias. I think he's a stupid gimmick. Like, we saw his debut, and the room was silent. I remember he came out, and everyone was like, "Who's this guy? He's not going anywhere." I don't understand what the WWE.
But his gimmick didn't work in NXT. His gimmick, worked.
It definitely didn't work in NXT.
Doesn't work now. He's terrible. Let's bring back John Cena. Get rid of Elias. Happy, very happy with that.
Fair enough. So let's talk about our next match anyway. So it was a street fight between Triple H versus Batista, and if Triple H loses, he must retire. So that was kind of the stipulation going in. We've obviously had the build on Monday Night Raw with Batista dragging Ric Flair through the backstage area, and Batista and Triple H getting involved in not the best of exchanges on the mic kind of leading up to this. It hasn't been the hottest of builds, certainly after kind of that week one where we saw Ric Flair get attacked backstage or getting dragged by his coat backstage through the backstage area. Triple H makes his entrance in kind of like a Mad Max style entrance here, while Batista Unfortunately, didn't make as grand an entrance by tripping over the ropes as he got into the ring, which was slightly cringeworthy. The match soon goes to the outside where Triple H nails Batista with a toolbox before wrapping a thick chain around Batista's head and face. Triple H gets a wrench and puts Batista's fingers inside the wrench before standing on it, seemingly breaking his fingers in the process. I'm sure that didn't happen, boys and girls. Triple H then pulls Batista's nose ring out of his face with some pliers. So you may remember a match between Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy from last year, where Randy Orton put a screwdriver in his kind of earring hole, and that was kind of cringeworthy. I'm not sure if this was meant to get the same reaction, but it just looked a bit naff to me. Batista then slams Triple H onto the two announce desks before launching him into a barrier at ringside. That was quite an impressive spot. Batista attempts to powerbomb Triple H from the ring steps, which were set up on the Spanish announce table, but Triple H body dropped Batista instead onto the next desk. I don't think any of these desks actually broke in the process. But Triple H did spear his opponent through the German announce desk next. So obviously they had to get one of the three tables broken eventually. Triple H finds his sledgehammer underneath the ring, but gets speared for his troubles by Batista whilst back in the ring. Batista then slides the bottom half of the ring steps back inside the ring, which Triple H is able to use to powerbomb Batista onto before executing his pedigree for a close near fall. Batista literally bounced off the steel ring steps here, with his head appearing to hit quite hard on the edge of the steps. Triple H gets DDT'd on the ring steps, but then Ric Flair appears. He passes a sledgehammer to his friend Triple H, which he uses to crack across the head of Batista before hooking the leg and covering for the 1-2-3. So that was a long match between two guys that are not renowned for their 5-star classics. It was made bearable by the street fight stipulation and kind of another WrestleMania moment there for Ric Flair. I think with what they had available to them, and I think the street fight element being added into it, it was an okay match. Triple H likes to get his long 20-minute plus matches in here, but Heather, I'll start with you. Did you enjoy this match? And was it made even more enjoyable by the various kind of hardcore elements on the outside, and then the appearance from Ric Flair? What did you think?
If I'm going to watch a hardcore match, I want to see people bloody. I want limbs torn off. I want it to be a real hardcore match. This was not that, which is a massive shame. But I didn't
broke his
expect
fingers.
anything other. No, he didn't. And he didn't pull his nose ring out. Come on, terrible. I didn't like the entrances. I never like the entrances. I think Triple H needs to calm himself down. Like, he's got enough going on, right? He's the CEO or whatever he's doing. He's in charge of the company. Doesn't need that entrance. Everybody knows who he is. He could just come out and be like, spit his water all over the place and get into the ring. It could have been better. I like Ric Flair. I feel like the older he gets, the more senile he gets. So when he came out and he was like, this, I'm gonna get you, and I was like, do you know what, Ric Flair, I love you. Like, I could just watch you talk for ages instead, and that would have been more of a better use of my time than watching that match. So I wasn't into it.
So you're not a fan of this match then?
No.
You haven't made it clear so far.
Oh no! I to make it clear, I actually do like Triple H and Batista separately. Okay. I do, but and I love a hardcore match. I just didn't think it worked here.
There's not enough limbs being ripped off for Heather's liking.
Ripped off.
Chris, what are your thoughts? I know this match is in the history books. What did you think of this one?
Well, maybe I'm not as bloodthirsty as Heather, but I did quite enjoy the match. I thought it was exactly what we were going to get. There was no real major spots. It was just kind of two old guys going at it, which is pretty much like what Triple H has been doing recently, especially at the bigger events like in Saudi Arabia or at WrestleMania. So, yeah, just pretty much exactly what I expected. If we are going to bring hardcore matches back into WWE on a regular occasion, I think it's perfect to bring the hardcore title in, especially in a 24-hour social media world right now, especially and when they've got the network. Imagine if you just got a notification on your phone and it just said hardcore title is being defended right now. I think it would be it'd be the perfect addition to everything they're doing. But I don't think it's going to be Triple H or Batista to bring that title back.
Well, there you go, Vince. So, if you're listening, there you go. That's an idea from Chris here to get more eyeballs on the network. Just that would be a good addition. But it was a fun match. I think it would have been a lot worse had it just been a standard one-on-one match. I think the hardcore element, the street fight element, definitely worked. It's once again one of their matches that's largely forgettable, unfortunately. Speaking of forgettable, you had Baron Corbin in the next match, and he was, to a lot of people's dismay, the final ever opponent to Kurt Angle in his WrestleMania and kind of wrestling in-ring career farewell match. So the match only went 10 minutes with Kurt Angle dominating most of the match with German suplexes and angle slams and ankle locks. However, the end of the match comes when Kurt Angle was going up for and missing a moonsault, unfortunately, allowing Corbin to hit his quite impressive finisher, the End of Days, for the surprise pinfall victory on Kurt's farewell match. Heather, I'll start with you. Like I say, you've only been into WWE for the last few years, so you weren't kind of a fan when Kurt Angle was kind of at his peak in the WWE, 10, 12 years ago, and probably after that in TNA. What's your kind of your image of Kurt Angle, and what did you think of this match?
He's a sweetie. He's an absolute sweetie. I think he's really, really cute. I also really like Baron Corbin. I don't know why everyone hates him. I think I don't know whether or not I want him to be a heel, because I think he's also very talented and a bit misunderstood. And I don't know if this is true, but like I feel like Kurt Angle knows that, and that's why he was like, oh yeah, I want Corbin to be my last match. At the end, when he was like, I just want to hear those two words that have defined my career, and he wants people to shout, you suck at him. And there were people being like, no, you don't suck, and the signs and everything. I just thought, this guy knows not how to take himself too seriously. He knows he's an incredible athlete, very talented. I think he's going to do a lot behind the scenes, or if he's not, he should do a lot behind the scenes to help people get more technical. Some of the people who perhaps are not the best wrestlers at the moment can learn a lot from him. So I thought it was a lovely little match, a couple of nice blokes. Very happy to watch it.
Okay, so I definitely agree. I think he could make a good trainer, over at NXT in Orlando, Florida. Definitely a good ambassador for the company, spreading the good word of WWE, and a good ambassador there. Chris, going to you, was you kind of in favour of Baron Corbin being Kurt Angle's final opponent, and who do you think should have been his final opponent if not?
Yeah, I didn't really think he was the best for it. I guess the one thing I remember is Mick Foley's farewell match against Triple H in Hell in a Cell, and I know he came back to do a very short run after that. But for me, that's how you want to go out. You want to go out on a big match where, especially someone like Kurt, who's given a lot to the WWE and only recently really came back after his TNA run and then did even more to make the WWE entertaining again. And just thinking about what a big match he was in last year, like Rousey's debut, I just felt like Kurt deserved a little bit more, and this didn't feel like a real farewell match. When watching it, it was obvious that Kurt needed to stop wrestling. I feel like he did so much that he probably shouldn't have. And then whenever he was walking around the ring, he just looked tiresome. He looked like he'd taken the bruises and couldn't take too much more, which is why I think the match was as short as it was. But then I also don't think Corbin really stepped up to prove that he deserved to be in the match. I was really looking forward to him kind of proving me wrong and going, I'm gonna show you why I'm in this match. I deserve it. But I felt that Angle made the match what it was, and it's he could have just had a better send off. With almost anyone else on the cards, like even if you like Lashley, with AJ, with Orton or Batista and Triple H, like any one of those, they could have made that a triple threat, like no holds barred loser leaves match if they really needed to, which wouldn't be
Yeah.
so uncommon with the storyline they had last year at WrestleMania.
It would have been believable.
Triple H. Yeah. So I just really didn't think it was needed, but it was great to see Angle have a really good match and show that he could still at least help the young guys get up, because it's going to be a great thing for Corbin's career. And if he does do more, then it's going to be a good win for him.
Well, yeah, and for those of you that are aware of what happened on Monday Night Raw from last night, you actually got the main roster debut, the long-awaited main roster debut of Lars Sullivan, who got into kind of a bit of a face-to-face with Kurt Angle. So I don't know if that's going to lead to Kurt coming out of retirement in kind of the world's shortest space of time. But that'll be interesting to see what happens there, or whether Kurt Angle is going to pick somebody to fight his battles for him and to go up against Lars Sullivan. But that'll be interesting to see what happens there, being as he'd only been retired one day and he's already getting into a bit of a face-to-face confrontation with Lars Sullivan. But let's move on to this is the penultimate match of WrestleMania. Now, we've already spoken about 14 matches. This match number 15. Bobby Lashley, the Intercontinental Champion, versus Demon Finn Balor. So the entrance for Balor was amazing, as you'd expect, with Balor in full Demon war paint for his for the first time getting the Demon entrance at a WrestleMania. So last year was his first ever kind of WrestleMania appearance in that four-way match. I think it was a three-way match with The Miz and Seth Rollins, the opener there for the Intercontinental Championship. That time he wasn't successful, but he went up against Bobby Lashley for the IC title again, this time as the Demon. So the action starts nice and early with Balor connecting with a senton over the top rope, which was quite impressive. Lashley soon takes control with various power moves. Balor makes a brief comeback, but Lashley pulls out a spear through the ropes, taking the Demon to the floor on the outside. So that was an amazing move, and both guys crashing heavily to the outside from that spear from Lashley. The end of the match wasn't too far behind, however, with Balor managing to hoist Lashley up for a powerbomb before connecting with his coup de grace, hooking the leg for the 3 count, and regains the IC Championship, which he lost only a few weeks earlier. And he's now a 2-time Intercontinental Champion. And Finn Balor, the Demon, gets his WrestleMania moment and his WrestleMania win. A great entrance and a solid win, and Finn Balor, 2-time Intercontinental Champion. So this was another fairly quick match, and it's surprising that we're talking about quick matches here, considering the main show went 5.5 hours.
It was Triple H's entrance.
Yeah, Triple H's entrance in his 20-minute match with Batista, yeah. So give us your quick thoughts on this match from the two of you before we talk about the main event. So, Chris, I'll start with you. What did you think about the Demon versus Bobby Lashley?
Yeah, really good match. Good to see the Intercontinental Championships getting more higher up the card and getting some strong matchups between people that are deserving of a good spot. One of the best coup de grace I think I've seen in a while. Lashley took it really solidly in the chest, and probably because he can. He's got a lot more chest muscles than me, so Balor doesn't seem to weigh too much compared to what he could probably bench press, but it was still a really good moment. A deserving win for Balor. Really good match. I liked it.
Very good. And Heather, did you enjoy the entrance? Did you enjoy the Demon's entrance? And
yeah, I love the Demon. I think he's so cool. I actually thought that the paint today on the back was like particularly quite scary. I think if you imagine if you're like a little kid, right, and your parents have taken you along to WrestleMania and it's a massive moment, and you're out there and it gets dark and the Demon comes out, you'd be so scared. You'd absolutely love it. And I like that there's the pageantry with that, but then you forget about it immediately as soon as you see him wrestle. And I think that Finn Balor is one of the best wrestlers of our time. Bobby Lashley too. Amazing clash of styles there between them. You've got very different wrestlers, but putting on an excellent show. Better than a lot of the other matches later on that we'd seen previously, and definitely something that potentially could have been a main card, could have been a headlining match.
Definitely.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
Very good. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think the two of you saw Finn Balor as the Demon at NXT TakeOver London a few years back. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And he was kind of Jack the Ripper, kind of demon esque, and that was one of the first times that he actually was, wore the demon war paint since signing with the WWE when he was kind of back in the NXT. I think he might have been NXT champion at the time. Yes, so there we go. Let's have a talk about the main event. So this has been the white hot feud that's been building since SummerSlam last year, possibly even sooner than that. I know that Becky Lynch's kind of appeal has kind of grown and grown and grown. Much like Daniel Bryan, where he wasn't being used properly, he was getting the wins on TV, he was getting a bit of exposure on TV, but never being featured. It was always Charlotte Flair being the main woman that was being spoken about and put in the headline positions and being given all the opportunities. And I think the fans started to resent Charlotte, and at SummerSlam when Charlotte won the women's championship. I think she won the women's championship, and Becky Lynch kind of decked Charlotte to kind of stake her claim for, I'm not to be kind of walked over sort of thing. And I think that, the man gimmick kind of developed from there. Certainly when Nia Jax broke her face, and you've got that iconic picture now of her kind of, getting up for kind of the battle with Nia Jax with a bloody face. But Becky Lynch has been one of the kind of revelations of the last decade, really. I think that the effort she's put into her character and the effort that she's put into kind of building this persona, and the effort that she puts into every single match has really got herself into this main event picture, and with a groundswell of support from the fans. And like I say, I think Ronda Rousey has been a fantastic heel. She's not long turned heel, but she's been, a fantastic heel going into this match. And Charlotte, the Queen, kind of the poster woman for the WWE. And I think these three iconic figures, I don't think the WWE could have done anything else apart from put these three in the main event. And that's what we got. Leading into this match, kind of where was your excitement level? What did you think about the three competitors? What was you looking forward to most? Heather, let me start with you. Did you think this was deserving to be a main event, and what were your thoughts going into it?
No, I didn't.
Controversial.
I'm a woman, right? Everyone, shock horror. No, I didn't, and it's a shame, really. But I've had enough of Charlotte Flair. She can go away. Ronda Rousey, I don't really see the hype, but she's not a character. She's not a good heel. No. Always loved Becky Lynch. Always thought that she's fantastic. I would have preferred to have seen her up against somebody like Nia. I maybe we see that. You broke my face. Let's have it out at WrestleMania, even though we've had it out before. Somebody just as kind of, strong in themselves and in their integrity, in their character. As Nia is, and who as Becky is. I'm not into Ronda and Charlotte's gimmicks. Now, having said all of that, very, very talented wrestlers. Charlotte Flair is probably one of the best technical wrestlers, female wrestlers that they've got. Yes. So I always enjoy watching her perform in a match. So when I actually watched it, I was actually, really, really blown away by it. I found myself getting excited, and I didn't think I would be, because I was a bit like about the match before I started watching it, but I absolutely loved it. I was into it kind of from the minute until the end, and I correctly called it. I on your prediction show, you were saying, John, is that you thought Charlotte would walk away with the title.
I did.
But I'm really, really glad that she didn't, and I'm really glad that Becky won, because she's a deserving champion and hopefully can take the women's division really, really far.
Okay, and Chris, what were your thoughts going into this match?
Yeah, I was actually excited for it, and I felt that it was the best main event for now. There's definitely, as much as there's a lot of talent in the WWE at the moment, there's also a lot of people just misused, and there's a lot of people not hitting their full potential and not getting main event spots, and it's because the storylines aren't there. The interest isn't there. There's a lot that's missing that makes it worthy of a WrestleMania main event. I think this storyline and these three girls, or these three women, had it all. I genuinely didn't think there was any other better main event that could have been picked for this year. So I was happy to see it. I was happy to see it deliver as well.
Yeah, it definitely did that.
Didn't understand Charlotte's entrance before Ronda Rousey's entrance in the helicopter. Yeah. Got a bit confused about that, but at the same time, interesting little segment before the match.
Yeah, it was a little bit different, but so let's go through some of the key spots of the match before we talk about the outcome. So there's a spot where kind of Ronda Rousey applies like a double armbar to both of her opponents, Lynch and Flair, across the top rope. Lynch is able to break free, but Lynch then kind of comes across and drop kicks Ronda Rousey from her kind of upside down position onto the floor on the outside. That looked like a bit of a tough spot to take. Becky then executes an inverted DDT and a regular DDT on both Charlotte and Ronda Rousey. So that was quite a cool kind of double T move there. There's a Beck Exploder from the second turnbuckle onto Charlotte, which is followed up by a flying crossbody onto Ronda. From Ronda. So all three kind of getting involved here all at the same time. There's several kind of disarmor attempts from Becky and armbar attempts from Ronda throughout this match. There's also quite a scary Spanish fly spot with Charlotte landing heavily and quite awkwardly on her right knee, which kind of played a part in the rest of the match. And Becky nearly landed on her head from that Spanish fly move. Still very impressive nonetheless. There's a figure eight from Charlotte onto Ronda, which is broken up by a flying leg drop from Becky from the top turnbuckle, which is quite impressive. Then a table is introduced, which Charlotte is eventually hip tossed through. The end of the match comes when Rousey hits a wicked kind of knee strike to the face of Becky before going for her Piper's Pit. But Becky pulls back in like a crucifix pin and kind of holds, I see it holds Ronda's shoulders down, but gets a 3 count. And we have a new kind of winner takes all champions. So we got Becky Lynch as the SmackDown Women's Champion and the Raw Women's Champion. It seemed a very awkward ending, a very awkward finish with Rousey possibly getting her shoulder up very briefly on the 1 count. But Becky Lynch, that was acknowledged by Corey Graves on the mic, and they did show a replay which clearly showed that kind of on the 1 count Rousey brought her shoulder up and then was back down again for the 2 and 3, so possibly an error on behalf of the referee. Whether the match was meant to have ended there or whether it's meant to have gone a little bit longer and ended a slightly different way. There's speculation that maybe Becky Lynch was meant to have gone over, by getting Charlotte to tap out to disarm her. But a lot of people are saying, or reports, Dave Meltzer and one or two others saying that yes, this was the planned finish. Whether it was meant to be as controversial as it ended up being, but I thought the match was good. Definitely a very deserving winner, and kind of another happy ending, another babyface win, another babyface champion to finish off WrestleMania. So I think it definitely sent the fans home happy. But what are your opinions of the match and the way the match ended? Chris, let me start with you. What do you think? Like say, one of the most important main events to WrestleMania, and did it end on a bit of a flat note to you? I mean, what was your kind of thoughts and opinions of how this match ended and of the new champion?
Great match, great build. All throughout, it kind of had that feeling of not knowing what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Ronda took an absolute beating throughout, and I don't think that was just on the moves that were on her, but also what she was doing. You could see the amount of bruises and random cuts all over her body before the end of it. So fair play to Ronda. I think we do forget that she's only really been wrestling a couple of years. I know it's been a year since her debut, but she hasn't, like, for her to actually step up to this level. I think she did deliver. However, if the last 3 seconds was her fault, then maybe that throws away, because it was a little bit of a kind of downer ending to what should be a really big moment. I don't think it was an accident myself, but mostly because Charlotte Flair was out of the ring for a good couple of minutes up until the end of that match. So I felt like it's a typical freeway dance ending is to just have it like that. I did think that if Ronda was going to lose, it would be by a pin. I think the big thing they're going to have is if they keep her never tapping out for the next 5 years or however long she decides to wrestle, it will be a big thing the moment she does tap out. And I don't think they're going to give that. They would have given that to Becky Lynch when she could have just pinned her anyway. And I guess we'll find out with the storyline where it goes from here. But generally, really, really good match. I felt it lived up to what it needed to be. Just a slight shame about the ending. If there was any other type of pinfall, it probably would have been a bit more of a dominant win for Becky.
Glad that it wasn't. I like the fact that it's open now. I kind of want Ronda to come back and be like, you didn't actually win. And obviously we've all seen the replays, but I think it's actually opened up, more controversy for future storylines. It gives them a little something to play with.
Yeah, so it could leave the story open-ended if and when Ronda returns. You say you never actually pinned me. Look at the replays. But I thought I have to echo what Chris said there. A fantastic match. Really enjoyed it. Ronda Rousey, I think she likes them to kind of lay it on thick when for the realism, for the the real element of it. She likes them to kind of don't pull the punches, because she is one tough competitor. And same goes for Charlotte and Becky. I thought it was a fantastic way to close out WrestleMania, although say the 3 count was a little bit questionable or a little bit awkward. I thought that the fans didn't really know whether it was the end or not, and I don't think Becky quite got the reaction that she was hoping for. The WWE didn't quite get the reaction that they were hoping for because of that confusion, but we got quite a few happy endings in this WrestleMania. We got Seth Rollins opening the show and winning the Universal Championship quite early on. We got Kofi-mania halfway through when he managed to beat Daniel Bryan in that outstanding match for the WWE Championship, and then this match here to close out the show. And I mean, if you were to kind of give this a thumbs up or a thumbs down, WrestleMania 35, Chris, how would you kind of rank this WrestleMania in terms of was it a thumbs up or a thumbs down show? Thumbs in the middle. Did you enjoy the show overall? And how did it kind of rate for you then?
Yeah, a thumbs up from me. Good to see It was a good WrestleMania that didn't need the Undertaker, and maybe that was because we got the Doctor of Fuckonomics. But I just felt like there's a lot that the WWE need to do to just kind of be different from what they've always done, and WrestleMania is their main show where they have to always deliver. And there were some matches on the card that maybe didn't need to be there, but that's probably always going to be the case with a 7.5 hour show or however long it actually lasted. Yeah. And overall, I felt like it was a good Mania to watch. I usually end up watching them 2 or 3 times in the first week. So yeah, there's nothing that's really throwing me off saying it wasn't worth watching. There was more than a handful of matches to keep you entertained. So yeah. A thumbs up from me.
Good. Heather?
Would have been a bigger thumbs up if Vince McMahon had actually come out
and fought George Mizanin.
There's a WrestleMania moment everyone needs.
That could be our main event for next year. That could be our main George Mizanin versus Vince McMahon. Yeah, that would definitely pull the crowd.
Really loved it. Definitely a big thumbs up. Always love watching WrestleMania. Like, however you feel about the matches, it's a spectacle. It's an opportunity for you to sit down with the people that you love in your life that love wrestling and enjoy it, and just to kind of throw yourself in it. So yeah, definitely a good one.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I'm going to give it a thumbs up as well. And I know that on the Wrestling with Johners Facebook group, there was a lot of mixed reactions, a lot of mixed, ratings going up on the board there. Some, rating it maybe 4 or 5 out of 10, some as high as 7, 7.5, 8 out of 10. So a lot of different opinions in terms of, how they thought WrestleMania was as an overall show. I think the main criticism, the main kind of comments and feedback is always the length of WrestleMania. And this was the longest WWE wrestling show in the history, to be honest with you, with a 2-hour pre-show and then nearly 5.5 hours for the main card and 16 matches overall. And like we said earlier, even some of those felt rushed, 2-minute matches, 3-minute matches. But they've got to get their kind of entertainment in. They've got to get their skits in with Elias, and of course Triple H has to have a 20-minute plus match. But I'd agree with both of you. I think it was definitely a thumbs up show. I think there were one or two matches that they really could have done away with. I think they could have sliced an hour off the show quite easily and probably given a little bit more time to some of the bigger matches. I'm already looking forward to next year's WrestleMania. It is. No, that'd be great. Great opportunity to get Kairi Sane involved in the women's championship match. She is our Sky Pirate, of course. But really good WrestleMania. It will be remembered for many things, including the Shane McMahon and Miz suplex, and not necessarily the Triple H and Batista match or the nose ring incident. George Mizanin, I think, definitely gets his WrestleMania moment there. Yes. He's a new Nicholas. A good WrestleMania. I think next year, please, Vince, just cut an hour off of it and give us a 4.5 hour show instead of 5.5 hours. But there we go. So that's the end of our WrestleMania review. Just want to thank Chris, Half Decent, and Heather for dropping on the pod, and thank you very much. Chris, first of all, have you got any plugs for yourself? Any Twitter pages or any social media you want to plug before we say goodbye?
I do rap and produce and make music. You can check it all out on any streaming platform under Half Decent, or follow me on Twitter or Instagram under halfdecentmusic.com. I also collect wrestling Hasbro toys and have a Instagram for that, which is called Half Decent Hasbros. So check that out for all your half decent wrestling related things.
Lovely, thank you very much. And Heather, any social media you want us to plug?
So you can follow me on finishingmovelimited.com. That's the website. You can have a little look on there, see what you can find something fun. There's also an Instagram, same name, Finishing Move Limited. Or if you're not into that, you can follow just me, which is H to the Piz Age.
Excellent. We'll all be looking out for that. And of course, you can follow Wrestling with Johners. You can email the show if you have any feedback or anything you want to ask us at wrestlingwithjohners@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at withjohners_pod. Once again, we're on Instagram, instagram.com/wrestlingwithjohners. And I urge you all to try and find our Facebook group, and to urge you to be part of that. And just go onto Facebook, search Wrestling with Johners, and ask to be part of that group. But that draws an end to this special episode, and thank you once again, Chris and Heather, for being a part of this. Would love to get you involved on a future episode, so thank you once again for dropping on the pod today. There we go. To all of our listeners of Wrestling with Johners, thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch up with you all again soon.